So we're going on a road trip. We're heading to a little village called Alaró, which is known for, well, two things. One is a restaurant we're going to go to. I'll tell you more about that later. And the second is it's got a famous castle, the ruins of a castle, and a chapel up there. Just to give you logistics on how to get here from the festival, it's about 40 minutes drive. You'll need to rent a car. Highly recommended to do the hike, which is about 45 minutes up, 45 minutes down, and then have lunch there. So we're about 15 minutes in the hike from the car, where we parked at the restaurant because you want to have lunch at the restaurant after. Free parking is straight up. Now we came in July like morons. That's why there's nobody else out here. Our spring festival is in late April, early May. Fall event is always in mid to late October. So the conditions will be perfect then. But yeah, if you're here in the summer, bring lots of water. Peter III was the king of Aragon. I guess his brother was the king of the newly created kingdom of Mallorca. When Peter dies, his son Alfonso III says, not having it, we want to get that back, we want to get Mallorca back. He invades the entire island, but up at this castle there's two guys held up, Guillen, they're both first name Guillen, Bassa and Cribet. So they're two like knights that have all their men up in this castle, and they're not going to give in. They don't care that the rest of Mallorca is taken over. And before we get to the wall, I'll tell you where that story goes. Donkey poop. Only donkeys can come up here, and people. Okay, so we're just getting to the first castle wall. You can see it's in ruins. This is probably 1400 years old at least. It was built in roughly 900 AD. So this is where our knights, Bassa and Cabret, which means goat, little goat, which comes back later in the story, they would have been holed up here, and their men would have stopped the initial Aragon forces that were taking this last siege of the last stronghold of the kingdom of Mallorca, which would have been here. There would have been archers here. The way this works is you can fire arrows through these holes left and right, but as you can see, it would be really hard for the arrows to get in, right? So you could take a shot here at these guys coming up the road, and they can't hit you back. And of course they've got the door closed. And so this would have been a battle first to overrun this. The overall siege took 2 months, and that would have been the first part that they'd have to get by the army of Aragon under Alfonso III. Here's another tower. After they got past that first gate, they'd have to get past this one. This would have been a hard wall. They would have had battering rams. There's no way to get up these steep walls. So they would have had to go through the doors. Well, maybe they put big ladders. You can see here why the castle was so key, because there's really no way of getting to the castle from this side. This was all the castle, okay? You can see the walls. It's broken down now, but there's a chapel in the middle of it that was built in 1602, 200 years after this event took place. Here they could see, obviously, Palma, the city, and this would have been the heartland where the farming and all the food was grown here. And there's a bunch of other little villages like Alaró dotted around. But why was it, since the Muslim conquest of 900, why was it such a strategic spot? Well, it will be because when you get to the other side here, which is a big cliff, well, you've got a view of this valley. So this would be a place where they would have put soldiers ready to move towards the west, because on the other side of this mountain is just the water, the sea. They probably had some more towers somewhere up there, and they had a lighting system or smoke or fire for night, and that's why this place existed for so long. This is interesting. I haven't talked to this guy, but you can see his helmet right there, and there's a guy digging in there. And I suspect he's probably an archaeologist. He's got his notebook here, and they're digging, looking for, I don't know, new finds. He's in that ditch. I don't know if it doesn't look like he recently dug it out, but maybe they're finding some new artifacts or something. Maybe they'll find a sword. Look at this old wall here. I mean, that's the original wall that would have gone up and raised. You can see the edge of the wall here, right? So this wasn't the original wall. It was much higher, and it was covering this whole area. It was a fortress with soldiers in it, food, water, and a communication to Palma over there. So with the Muslims here first, they picked up on that at this spot as a good spot to build a fortress. And of course, it's retaken by the Catalans in 1229. There's also a refuge here. This whole mountain range has these little places called refuges where you can book like a bed. It's very, very simple. As part of your hiking trip, you can stop and get a bed. They usually have food. Here, this place has food and coffees. Gotta bring cash, don't forget that. And this is just one of the stops. So let's take a look at this chapel. So I'm guessing these guys here are the two knights that, after the siege, one of them mocked King Alfonso III. Let's say this guy, I don't know if it's him, but if this is cabrit, that means little goat in Catalan. And he was so furious that they mocked him that he said, once we catch these guys, they're going to get roasted like little goats they are. And so, of course, after 2 months, Alfonso's forces get through, capture these two guys, take them down to Alaró, the little village, and burn them alive. And that marks the end of the Kingdom of Mallorca, which was short-lived. They all spoke the same language. They were both speaking Catalan. This whole thing was the castle. Everything. From when we walked into the gates, there was a kind of a naturey area. This is all cliff on the other side of this, so that acted as a natural castle. So the troops would have been living up here. There was probably a little town up here inside, a little economy. It was a trading route between villages, and there's a donkey. It's really crazy to think that this is a place where people lived and a lot of people died. And here's the other side of the fort, but you can see the other side of the island from here. That's the Bay of Alcudia. So you could probably get signals along these mountaintops if an army was coming from that side, or pirates. So I guess the point of all this is, if you come to Mallorca, really recommend as one of the stops that you do 2 nights in a cool little town like Alaró and check out some of these sites. And there's probably 100 little villages like Alaró with their own little story, from this mountainous kind of region to the flatlands, which is more of your wine growing country, more agricultural based, but they all have their own little story. Okay, so we've come back from the hike, and we've come to the actual place called Placa de Cabrit y Bassa, which is basically our 2 heroes that we were talking about earlier when we were at the castle, because we're now in the village of Alaró, and they have this little plaza. There's nobody here dedicated to them. And if you remember, Cabrit, right? Guillaume Cabrit, he mocked the king Alfonso from Aragon, right? And remember, he's part of the Kingdom of Mallorca, the short-lived one. Alfonso takes over all of Mallorca. Cabrit gives some lip to Alfonso through some sort of channel, and Alfonso says, once we finish this siege of the castle, they're going to roast like baby goats, because the Cabrit means baby goat in Catalan. Anyway, this is where these guys, they caught them after the 2-month siege of the last holdout of Mallorca. These 2 heroes are led down here, and they are burnt alive across an iron pole, around a crowd, straight up medieval stuff. And so they've created this monument for them. And if you look over here to this area, you can see this is their sort of homage to them. So with that said, that's the story of this little town in Alaró. And there's all kinds of little towns like this around Mallorca. What's interesting, where this story might pick up on our next video, which is going to be about the historic capital of Mallorca, is apparently somebody dug out some bones here of rib bones of these two guys. I don't know how they could tell who's who. And they were in the palm of the cathedral for, I don't know, hundreds of years. And they were recently put back up at that chapel somewhere, which we never looked for them, recently. So that's an interesting story. So we might go and see where their bones in that super massive cathedral, the most famous one in Mallorca, and one of the most beautiful cathedrals in Spain and the world. It rivals the Notre Dame in size. We'll probably see that on our next video. So check it out.